Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy, and this should be of particular note if you are using an electric vehicle. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by Arwin, who's joined just before I put myself on camera for the introduction. Thank you very much indeed, Arwin. We've also got Neil, 10th Man, Crack Villain, Refracted Curvature, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome at one and all.
Greetings, all.
Yo, yo.
I thought I was just in time before.
What, just in time being 3 seconds before I put myself on camera? Thank you so much.
Yes.
Yeah, wonderful.
Okay. I'll try to be quicker.
And
you did start a little early, though.
No, I did not.
I didn't join until I heard you moan about Orwin, and then I thought it's late. I can't join now.
Hey, Adam. Good to have you.
Hello.
I don't think we're like yesterday yet to hear anything from anybody in Discord. Hopefully somebody will say a quick hello. I should really sound check them in the pre-show. I keep forgetting. Hello, Discord.
Oh, I actually handed out a couple of links to people in my chat on the early bird show that were asking for Discord links. So there might be some new people getting in.
Try that one more time. Hello, Discord.
Hello.
Oh, thank God I didn't need the tumbleweed sound effect. Thank you, Fleric.
Hey, good morning from Discord.
Hey, Stag. Thank you for replying. Excellent stuff. Let's do a bit of housekeeping. Let's keep the enthusiasm level high. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curve?
No, you need off of that.
Fair enough.
No.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Nope.
Not whatsoever. None. Not.
If it was rotating, the rate of rotation would be based on R.
Measured in radians.
So you're going to need
also,
off of that too.
The thing about rotation is that if nothing is deviating, then it's safe to assume you're not rotating. Ballers and anti-flat earthers still like to think so, that you can actually have rotation without anything deviating.
We've tried to say that to them, Arvin, but they never get our drift.
Ah.
No, the thing about rotation is you're rotating.
How profound. So they claim there's a 15 degrees now deviation, as it is claimed Earth is a non-inertial turning reference frame, and from that non-inertial claimed to be turning reference frame, it is claimed by the globe we will see things appear to drift from our vantage point turning beneath things not attached. That would mean you look at an aeroplane and watch it take a perceived curved path, because Earth is claimed to turn beneath it. Of course, for us to see a perceived curved path in an aeroplane, that would mean we're turning beneath it to see the curved path in the aeroplane. And if we're turning beneath aeroplanes, it shortens their flights when travelling west. And that does not happen at all. So we're not turning beneath aeroplanes. It would be really obvious if we were. We're not.
Yeah, that's literally.
And that's just for
yesterday.
And that's just for apparent deviations, right? That's just the Coriolis deviations that we would see. On top of that, you would also feel if you are actually moving because you're part of a turning thing that you're standing on. You'd feel it in some way.
I'm going to try the quantum eraser method in regards to Coriolis debunking. because it's a two-step process. First, establish with your opponent that they actually understand what Coriolis effect actually is. Now, most of the time, you'll find that they don't. So his answer to this is get them to define what Coriolis effect is. Now, I'm going to do that now. It would be the not actual deflection observed in an item travelling through an inertial reference frame as you observe it from a non-inertial turning reference frame turning beneath it. That is Coriolis effect. Now, if they don't understand that effect, there's no point arguing with them because they're not going to understand when you've won. Now, what is the cause of any, not Earth-based, but any Coriolis effect? The cause of Coriolis effect, that would be you observing a not actual deflection in an item in an inertial reference frame because you are turning beneath it. So the cause of Coriolis is you turning beneath things that aren't attached to the frame of reference you're turning on. For example, you are on a roundabout turning beneath a tree branch. As you turn, it looks like the tree branch comes towards you, goes out of view, and then comes back again. And it will continue to do that as you turn underneath it. That would be the not actual deflection of the tree because, cause, you are turning beneath it. So to have the Coriolis effect, as is claimed by the globe, you must be turning underneath stuff. That is the cause of Coriolis effect. Now, once you've established that with your opponent, you then dispense with the actual Coriolis effect because you just focus on the cause of it. So, cause of Coriolis, if the globe claims we have it, is us turning beneath stuff. Well, it would be patently obvious if that was the case. We would notice if we were turning underneath stuff. In the same way you'd notice the tree coming towards you and going away on a roundabout. Well, you'd notice because we'd turn underneath aeroplanes, we'd observe curved paths in drones as they curved away from you at whatever velocity, rim, edge velocity, whatever you want to call it, on a claim to be turning Earth. So if at your location it's 600 mile an hour rim velocity at 15 degrees an hour, well then you're going to see your drone launch from the ground and whiz away from your perception while it hovers at 600 miles an hour. Why? Well, because you're turning away from it at that rate, according to the claim we spin. Now, that doesn't happen. So the cause of their claim, which is Coriolis effect on a claim to be turning Earth, the cause is Earth claimed to be turning beneath stuff, and we would notice. Move over to showing exactly how we're not turning over, how we're not turning underneath things, as is claimed to be the cause of Coriolis effect. And the response we get is, we wouldn't expect to see Earth turning underneath. And then they reposition the claim to make it your flat Earth claim. Why would you, the flat earther, expect to see things turning underneath? Because it's the cause of Coriolis effect. If we had it, we'd see it. It's just that simple. We don't. So now you've got to go through this rigmarole of changing your globe claim that we'll see drift at 15 degrees an hour into being an extraordinary claim a flat earthers make. Why would the flat earther make a claim that we're turning underneath? You silly idiot. Flat earther, let's debunk it, because it doesn't happen. Well, we're both singing from the same hymn sheet at that point, because we're saying Earth doesn't turn underneath, and the anti-flat earth are saying Earth shouldn't be expected to see any drift because it's turning underneath. So you're both saying the same thing. Meanwhile, the globe claims there'll be Coriolis effect. That is caused by Earth turning underneath stuff. If it was occurring, we would notice. Anybody got anything to add? If not, we'll move on with housekeeping. Any evidence?
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
Go ahead,
There?
go ahead.
Yeah, so when I go outside and I see the clouds moving, that's what I see. It's the clouds moving. The air, I feel the wind. Then you see the sun's transit. Same thing at night with the stars and the moon. Obviously, we're not turning, or else what you just said would be apparent to all. But since they're admitting there's no drift, then it's obvious that we're stationary and the movement is of the luminaries above us.
Indeed, and in terms of the navigation aspect, that's precisely how it's considered, regardless of your fundamentalist religious belief that you're on a sphere and justification thereafter triangulation. Earth is at the centre. As far as we can ascertain, we're a unique, fixed position at the centre of it all. Now, that might be terribly concerning to a heliocentrist who would much prefer that the sun is at the centre of our solar system and we are an insignificant speck of dust floating through an ever-expanding infinite vacuum. Deeply insignificant. However, when it comes to even navigation on a globe, you will be considering yourself to be at the centre of the universe in order to do this. A geocentric position must be taken to do triangulation. Now, you don't have to like it, but we, where we are, do occupy a very, very special place because it seems we're at the centre of it all. Now that, if it doesn't make you contemplate your existence a little bit, makes you a stone-cold psychopath. Because it should. It's one of the few things in this argument that actually terrified me. When I first got here, I'm like, I don't like that bit because it means there must be God. I don't like that. There's a certain amount of skeletons I don't want to open the door on ever again. And if there's a God, I might have to. So that bit scared the shit out of me. I'm not going to lie about it. Eventually, there was no way away from it. There's no way of getting around it. And even the heliocentric, claim to be scientists, admit it.
Yeah, that's true. They've effectively shown this as well, apparently so, in their own observations that see the axis of evil, for instance, coined and dubbed axis of evil due to what it was that the observations showed. I believe taken on the equator and also on the northern hemisphere, showing several galaxies aligning, and not only aligning, but seemingly as if they were coming toward the center point, and that being the Earth, over a period of 30 years. So they admit this themselves, and they also have things that they can show you to show that they admit this.
Yeah, Jaren's been doing it recently on his channel. So just go and check out his I think it's 100 quotes that show the Earth isn't moving or something like that. But yeah, just listen to him rattling them off one after the next, while they tell you about how terrible it is to concede the position we must accept as true, which is that we're at the centre of it all, because it's very unfavourable to admit that. And I'll say it time and time again, it's astonishing. I mean, I've heard all these quotes from Jaren over the years, but listening to a nice, concise list of them rattled off one after the next, every time I was at least shaking my head going, yeah, amazing. How do we believe this stuff? Is it actually of our own doing? Is it just the anti-flat earth rhetoric being pumped into the mainstream when it's needed that keeps this crap going, that keeps the heliocentric lie alive? You've got to ask yourself, how is it being kept alive? Why is it constantly punted on the mainstream media? Why is every movie going to have a globe in it? There's got to be a conscious effort to do that, surely, at some stage, without sounding like a conspiratard. Because it seems to me like it's consciously pumped out at every opportunity. You got something presented, Adam?
Just in relation to that, I couldn't find it in time yesterday, but when intense presentation, and you mentioned it there, this unique position, and it reminded me of the Hubble quote, which I'd just like to read. That's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is to do with Edward Hubble, and basically why it says it here. It's become common in creationist circles. This is a critique of it, which is nice to read. In creationist circles, to reference the quotes by Edwin Hubble that suggest extreme bias on Hubble's part, introducing the cosmological principle. And this is why he introduces the cosmological principle, because such a condition would imply that we occupy a unique position in the universe, but the unwelcome supposition of a favoured location must be avoided at all costs. Such a favoured position, of course, is intolerable. Moreover, it represents a discrepancy with the theory, because the theory postulates homogeneity. The first bit's destroying. The second bit is, I think, more telling, and it tells you that why we couldn't occupy a unique position is because it would represent a discrepancy with the theory. So not based on anything observed, yeah, because those indicate we're that way. But the reason we reject the obvious nature of our central position is because it represents a discrepancy with the reality, and that's
with their quote-unquote theory, which is colloquial in their definition and vernacular. It's not a scientific theory that it's in contradiction to. It's with their mystic Meg theory, that it's in contravention of. In other words, reality contravenes their notions of a heliocentric world, therefore isn't acceptable.
That's my understanding, yeah.
Nathan, I'm glad he brought that up. Thank you, Adam. One might think or expect that this line of thinking that you had prior to Adam presenting is coming from any side of the argument that's opposite of heliocentrism. But as documented from a variety of sources, they're the ones saying that when you do astronavigation using the sextant, you have to assume the Earth is stationary and that it's the stars turning. Now, that's troublesome because that's our argument.
Yeah.
And it's their side, and it's their side saying that's the way it works. That's the only way it could only work.
Yeah, work's an interesting word in this respect because when they say work, they often mean mathematics not doing anything. In this regard, moving physically around on the plane we dwell atop is work. And when it comes to those functions of getting around and not dying as a result, you've got to have something that works. And to make it work, they must assume that we haven't got a moving Earth. We've got stars that move their position over the terrain, exactly as we observe it. Further to that, they need straight lines and baselines along them to the GP position of the star where it is over the location of the land, so you can triangulate that star. Ergo, Earth is flat. Any more, or can we move on in housekeeping?
Just a summary that this is what I see as I go through the Nautical Almanac, not all by itself, but some of the summaries or descriptions in it. But mainly, if you get Bowditch's work on, which is called the American Practical Navigator, which is a must if you're going to be at sea, or any other of the 10 or 15 books I have on the subject when I started studying it, that's where the contradictions appear within the group of people who are saying we live on a sphere and you need to use spherical trigonometry and you got to have the PZX triangle from the celestial sphere land exactly in, it's a curved triangle, by the way, on the terrestrial sphere. And that's how you figure it out. And you're reading all this and you're saying, oh, okay, so they actually believe the Earth is curved. And then next thing you know, you read it says, well, guess what? You need straight lines. You need a vertex. You need a 90 degree. You need a radius of a circle of equal altitude. And furthermore, you got to pretend the Earth's not moving for this thing to work. Give me a break.
Yeah, there's no getting away from the physical reality we actually experience. And when it comes to, like I say, experienced navigators, they're not navigating over spherical surfaces. They're triangulating with a flat plane and getting where they're going without issue, and have done for a very long time. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth? Shocking. Any evidence of the R value, Earth radius?
I was on mute, but I can respond to both with a sentence. You're going to need R for that.
Any evidence of R, as they're going to need it for so many different things? Are they carrying on Bob's vein of there is no R, or no R is required, or circles don't have an R? Has anybody sort of picked up the baton from him and gone, yeah, of course? Anybody at all?
I hope not. That would, well, I mean, if they do, that's going to be such an embarrassment for them. I mean, that was a debacle what Bob tried to do. But, you know, it's a presupposition. It doesn't exist, only in the mind. So Adam's right. You're going to need R for it, and you ain't got it in reality, so you got to make it up in your mind.
Not only that, like the assumption they made when they claimed or they believed they were measuring it, if it's got contrary evidence to that, then I don't even know if it can be considered a belief at that point. It's more of a delusion.
Yeah, that's what QE says all the time. Normally with a high-pitched, exasperated voice because it's in the middle of some delusional statement that they've made. But yeah, I agree. That is how it comes across. They are delusional. If they're here, and if they're in the normie realm, at the top of the hill, as I metaphorically describe it, having not been pushed down or rolled down of their own accord or accidentally come across that's forced them to trip down the hill, right? Those people aren't delusional. They live on a sphere because that is how it is, and there's nothing to suggest otherwise. Now, not one of you will be able to say you weren't in that position at one point in your life. Pauses for dramatic effect, waiting for somebody to say, nah, I didn't live in blissful ignorance that we weren't on a sphere. Of course I knew. Chocolate's not here, is he? Thank God. That would have ruined it.
Well, I was not to say that I ever thought that we potentially didn't live on a sphere, but I was brought up from birth a geocentrist, at least. So I was brought up never to believe in gravity. Told it is complete bunk, no scientific validation for it. The fact that the so-called fact that the Earth was moving, completely rubbish again. But then that was very weird going to school.
Crack. You said this in those, and I think that's credit to your parents. But how come they weren't flat earthers? Because once you've made that kind of leap, that for us, the rest kind of follows, doesn't it? So where did they get their R? Because they've poo-pooed G to you. How did they keep an R in their head?
Well, the way it was just explained to me was that, that obviously I'm going to too much detail, but it was just more explained to me in this sense. It was never like you're on a globe. It was more all of this stuff is conjecture at best. There's no way of proving any of it. And gravity, no way of proving it. Don't take it as fact, son. Don't take any of this as fact because all of it is conjecture at best. There's no validation for any of it, basically. And you are at the center of the universe and you do matter. That was how I was raised.
So they're confirming geocentric, but that doesn't necessarily, there's no weight in there for a ball. It's just, you're talking about actually our position with regards to the luminaries.
Exactly that, yeah. But it wasn't neither said by my father or my mother either that, we definitely live on a globe, right? That was never a claim they made. But it was confusing for me going into school. 100%. I went into school thinking gravity doesn't exist, but we live on a ball. So obviously all of those questions came up for me straight away, like why are we not falling off said ball, etc., etc., etc. And then obviously, as we spoke the other day, those sorts of questions being asked to science teachers about scales of weight versus centrifugal versus gravity, if that's what makes up my weight, which I don't even know if that's the current rhetoric, but just a confusing position for a young lad to sort of be in, but one that I'm glad I was, because I'm not exactly invested in any way, shape, or form in the globe. Never was. It was very easy for me to shake any form of cognitive dissonance that may have occurred if that hadn't been the case.
That also explains when you first, that the mass family migration to flat Earth as well.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Most of us, that does not happen with anyone else in your family, spouses included. You know what I mean? But that makes normal sense as to why there's lots of O's around.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So it's pretty much everyone in my family is a flat earther. It was just natural. Going back to seeing Samuel Rowbotham's books sort of posted in certain places before Eric the Bay's sort of videos were being made. And then, around that time it was just, I'd say very quickly that everyone was like, all right, it's flat. Oh yeah, that makes complete sense. We've observed that our whole lives. We've observed Lundy Island off the coast, southwest coast of England. 19.7 miles away every day. Look at the mathematics. This makes no sense. Doesn't comport to the size of the ball. So yeah, it was a very quick and logical leap for every one of us to make. And then me being the one who's a bit more introspective into all this stuff, I pretty much very quickly started to explain it to people in a more scientific fashion in my family to validate it further, because I didn't want them just going out looking crazy.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
If you want to assume it's physical, you'll need R for that.
Right on. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Come on, Crack, you got to answer that one.
In what, sorry?
Definitely no. So,
You were brought up to know that. You know, that's what you just said. So
definitely not.
It'd be nice to have Sleeping Warrior on to tell us what he's up to at the moment in his world of non-gravity, because he's kind of an expert in it as far as I'm concerned. He knows far more about I. The only person comparable would probably be Arwin. So it'd be nice to know what he's getting up to. He doesn't often join anymore. I know he's got a lot on. I do keep up with him daily. He probably, I'll just say it now, he knows this is almost like a call out for him. There we go. We'll see. Well, he's been telling me stuff that's exciting, and I can't just divulge it on the show, but Anthony's always got exciting stuff going on, and you know, I crave him telling my audience, and it's not my position to tell my audience Anthony's stuff, it's his. So if he was here, he'd be doing that. I'm sure he's just not.
I'll bribe him, mate. I'm only going to finish reading that ridiculously long email that you sent me, Nathan, if you do come on, Tony.
I've read both of them. There's two. There's two. Have you read the second one?
I've read the bit from the department. I'm halfway through.
Too many words. Let's just talk about this after the show. Too many words. We don't know what he wants to divulge in. I haven't spoken to him about that. I've just been reading the very long interactions he's been having. This is a live show. We're doing in talk. This is very, very unprofessional. Let's move on with housekeeping. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
No, but we got attention.
No, not at all. I've been looking as well. I've actually been looking, and again, no.
If you're a heliocentrist in those fields and you want to put forth a hypothesis, you would require R for that.
I love it. You get around all the disclaimers and then drop it in. Very good. Can you repeat it? Hopefully no one will interrupt you. Just say that again with the disclaimers.
If you're a heliocentrist in those fields and you wish to put forth a hypothesis, you would require R for that.
That's correct. An astrophysicist who wants to suppose a hypothesis in a heliocentric paradigm will require R. Correct. A lot of disclaimers. And the reason those are dropped in if you're a new audience member is because almost all of the housekeeping questions can just be answered with one answer. You'll need R for that is the answer to most of them. But there are a couple of exceptions, and this is one of them. But John was father of a stolen child, refracted curvature, I'll get there in the end, was determined to drop this in with that answer, you'll need R for that, but it does require a couple of steps to get there. Maybe just one, but you know what I mean? It needs a little bit of a disclaimer is what I'm saying. But kudos. Last but by no means least, is there any evidence that you can have gas pressure without a container?
Absolutely not.
There's a bit going off in chat with Professor Phil at the moment and Tony, and I'm just responding to Phil now. So I'll just read his statement. Sleeping Warrior, at 38 kilometers, the pressure is only 0.007 psi. I thought, oh, that's just, okay, lovely. But what we're comparing that to? The 10 to the minus 17 tour, aren't we, of space? So we're talking in different units. So I thought I'd just convert them. And according to Google, it's that tiny little PSI value is actually equal to 0.36 torr, which is what? 10 to the minus 17, so 16 orders of magnitude still greater than the supposed vacuum. So compared to the vacuum of space, that is one pressurized system still. Professor Phil.
I love it. I'd never done the maths, or had I ever considered, why is it that when they tell me how many psi there is and then label it a vacuum, is it that it's in a different value to the torr claim, 10 to the minus 17 thereof, in the sky vacuum out of space? Why is that? I've never even considered it. But there we go. With a conversion, we've got 16 orders of magnitude less in the observable nature of the gas pressure we do experience. Yeah, if the sky was a vacuum, that would be 10 to the minus 17 torr. Maybe you can convert that into a PSI value for me.
Who's that?
Perfect. I love having a mathematician on the show. Most people are aware I'm not exactly very maths orientated. People catch me out with maths questions and then make endless videos about them to strawman the argument by ad hominem. But that doesn't fuss me, especially when you got someone like Adam. It's like, can you do this? I wasn't expecting you to say, yeah, I'll be back in a minute.
I've been waiting for someone to give us a torr value for like 0.01 PSI, because 0.01 PSI sounds very, very close to zero, right? So that's why they talk about it like that. But when you convert it to a torr value and then compare that to 10 to the minus 17, then you see the difference.
Oh, I got a good answer for this one.
I'd like afterwards.
It's basically 1.93 or 2 to the minus 19 PSI.
It's more zeros.
Yeah.
10 to the minus 19 in PSI.
Yeah, next to 0.007. Yeah, so it's just still the same orders of magnitude, 16, 17 orders of magnitude, you say. Just the units are funkier, so it makes it look less significant, the difference, doesn't it?
Oh, the tangled web we weave. Go ahead, crack villain.
It's sort of kind of like when you compare the end points of potency in chemistry of, let's say, a drug, for instance, right? You have the end points of potency. So the last 2% of the potency, let's say, of any form of drug, pharmacologically speaking, and what that would cause for the bioavailability and its absorption into the blood, versus, right, when converted over into, vacuums and, essentially the way they like to play it, so that they change the unit in order that we don't see the magnitude of what they're actually showing. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like those last points of magnitude are massive, and they make a huge difference when you work out the numbers, as Adam just did. It's like if you have 70% pure, methylphenidate versus 99% pure methylphenidate. The last sort of 5% of point on the 99% pure are equal to more than if it was 85% pure on the other of the methylphenidate, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah, a way of jumbling the numbers. Shell game, as Arwin likes to call it. Go ahead, John.
Just an analogy.
Hold on one sec, crack villain. Go ahead, refracted curvature.
Oh, I was going to say, for this, there's an R answer for this one, but it would be, even if you had R, you still couldn't have gas pressure without a container.
Yeah, the way they get their V would require R, though, wouldn't it? Because it's the difference between the Kármán line and the ground level on a sphere. So to calculate their V, if they're going to do one without a container, they still need R for it. Is that where you're driving at? So you're saying you couldn't do it anyway because you haven't got a container, but you'd still need R to not do it, sort of thing.
Well, yeah, there's...
That's right, Nathan. You still, even with R, you still could not do it, even with R.
You're going to need R to blag that you can do that, almost.
Yeah, you're going to need R to trick people into believing you could, that it's possible, yeah. That'd probably be as close as I would go with it.
Sorry, Professor Phil's doing just exactly what you described, Darwin describes it as a shell game. So the difference between the ground and 10 to the minus 17 torr is 14.7 psi or 760 torr. Mathematically, that's correct, but it ignores what we're talking about, Phil, which is the orders of magnitude. Okay, that's the issue, Phil. I don't know if you can comprehend that, but a bit much, because the way you try to summarize it is that's half the pressure needed for a car tire. Don't think you're grasping what we're talking about, Phil, but
I say many a true word spoken in jest. So shout out to Godzilla37. He says, the year is 2043. Nathan slowly raises his eyes while his nurse pushes his wheelchair closer to the mic. Any evidence of the R value? Thank you very much indeed.
Dying breath in your fucking hospital bed.
Indeed. Well,
Just
he's not
push
wrong
back
though,
and say
because
the word.
I picked the subject has longevity. As far as I could ascertain, the current paradigm is globe. The reality is flat. That's not going to go away in a hurry. You know, if it changes one way or the other, there'll still be a need for my show. So I seem, unless I'm
it will
censored
never
out of
change. The thing
existence.
is,
that
we
is.
live in the moment, and we live in this moment, and you look at this moment, and what you see is no curvature anywhere, or if you experience it when you've gone up in a plane. You've seen birds go over the horizon, but you haven't seen it when you go up in a plane, and you can't see it in a high altitude balloon. It's ridiculous.
Easy,
you know,
easy
unless you
now,
compress the
Tiger.
images.
Whoa. Yeah, check him out
It's
with
all
his
crazy.
chainsaw, wielding that chainsaw. What can't you see from altitude?
is that the rock in?
It is
No,
that
I'm just
rock.
saying it's no curvature,
Yeah.
Nathan. I'm saying
The tattoos
you can't
didn't
see
match
any
at all,
curvature. We
did
don't
they,
experience
Adam?
none in this
It
moment.
wasn't
So
even
you're saying
close,
when you're in your
slightly.
deathbed when you're older,
He's in the
it's
screen
sort of
next
changes.
to
But it
you.
will never change because we've already identified the moment. The moment is there is no curvature, and that moment will never change.
Yeah, what I was driving at, Tommy, was for a lot of flat earthers, there's a misapprehension about what you will or will not see at altitude, not necessarily linking it to the black swan. I'll explain if you'll bear with me. So shout out to who was it that originally did this? I think it was Righteous Force that highlighted this for me originally. So at the ground level, you appreciate that you can't have a geometric limitation beyond where it should physically be. That's the black swan argument, right? I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
Just say yeah. Perfect. Why would that be any different at altitude? It's the same horizon.
They say because you have to see a circumstantial amount of the ball surface area to distinguish the curvature with the naked eye in
What's the
ratio
cur-
to
yeah,
what it can.
yeah, I
what it
got you.
can.
I got you. What's the curvature? What are you looking
The
at?
curvature is 3 miles per square inch.
No.
Something like
What
that.
is it you're looking at? You're in your plane. You're looking at quote unquote curvature. Doesn't matter if it's according to them or you. What are you looking at? What is it that's in your view that you could describe?
3 inches per mile squared from due to the observer's height in feet. That's what I'm looking at, basically, curvature over the Earth. Apparently.
And what does that look like? Describe it to
It
me.
looks flat and motionless, and everything behaves as if it was in a contained system that had no deviation, nothing. No rotation.
You're not
of the
picking up
surface
what
of
I'm
the
putting
Earth.
down, Tommy. Okay.
Yep.
Don't flail. Just listen.
I'm just saying,
Don't flail.
Just
Just listen.
reality.
Just listen. Right. The horizon is what you're saying won't curve at altitude, right?
No, it doesn't curve at altitude now.
But it's the horizon that you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
The horizon's not Earth curve, Tommy. We've debunked it with the black swan. It doesn't
Yeah, I
make
know
any
it's
difference
not.
how-
But what I'm saying is what they're. I'm talking about what they're meant to believe and what they're supposed to. They're supposed to see that. I don't see that. But I'm saying what will never change, Nathan, is what we experience. Like even if you're in your deathbed, you're saying unless somehow the Earth starts curving and I start seeing curvature, there's no way that will ever change because we live in this moment. We've identified this very moment we live in, and we look out the window and we don't see any curvature. And we don't experience any movement with the plane's deviation. So your senses tell you live in that moment, and that moment is truth. That truthful moment will never change. Billions of years, quadrillions of billions of years will never change.
Sure, I get
That's
you.
what we experience.
Okay,
in that
I think
moment.
you're
thank you.
missing it.
Okay, I get
No,
it.
he's attacking what Nathan said. I pricked my ears up. Nathan said, and if that was to change, then I'd still have a show. And I think that's what
Yeah,
the
that's what you
Rock
said.
is cooking.
I want to move on from that. Thank you, Adam. But the point I'm trying to get across to you is that when you say I don't see Earth curvature, yeah, well, the reason people can still assert that they do is because of a lack of appreciation that the horizon isn't Earth curvature.
And apparently, you can't see the Earth curvature unless you could see basically the whole of America. You know, a big continent, that sort of altitude, which is like nearly 300 miles up. And apparently,
no,
even
no,
at 300
gonna
miles
get
up,
it.
Hold on.
that wouldn't be
Just
enough.
1 second. Go ahead.
The numbers
Was
are
that
all
Neil?
over the place.
Hold on. Just 1 second. Was that Neil trying to get a word in from G+?
Yes,
Yeah,
it's
I mean-
not Earth curve. You're never going to see Earth curve. The horizon is not Earth curve.
But it's supposed
It's
to be
not
the
gonna be Earth
leading
curve.
edge of a sphere, right?
This is the point. When you say I can see something from altitude or I can't see something from altitude, well, there's a slight discrepancy in the wording, and that's what I'm trying to get to the nub of. Why is it that someone like Tommy can say, I don't see Earth curve from high altitude, and then rattle off a whole load of reasons that if you're on the globe, just at the top of the hill, you've come across this show and you go, what the hell's he babbling about? I go up in a plane and I do see Earth curve. Now, the confusion comes because what are you actually talking about? Well, you're both talking about the horizon. Well, the horizon is an Earth curve. We've debunked it with the black swan. If the horizon was a physical geometric limitation to our view, i.e. the curve of the Earth, it would be at no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. The observer's
guess-
height in feet doesn't make any difference if that's 30,000 feet. It's the same exact principle. The horizon
Nathan,
claimed to be Earth curve.
Nathan, I
My
just
God.
think, I
My
think
God.
the reason,
My God. Important. Your phraseology will leave you in an argument that you don't understand with somebody that's saying that they can see it. Because it doesn't clarify what's being discussed. What are you
Yeah, it's
talking
true.
about, Mr. I can see the horizon from 30,000 feet? Well, it's the curve of the Earth that I see. Well, what is that? Well, it's the curve at 8 inches per mile squared, which is what you said you couldn't see. But you're still
It's true,
talking at
but I
cross
guess-
purposes. The point being that once you clarify what we're talking about, we can or cannot see. That's the horizon. And you go, oh, so you, on the globe side, think the horizon is an Earth curve edge. It isn't. We've debunked it. End of argument.
But when you're talking to a flat earther about it, or somebody that already knows that it's not the Earth curve, that's why they're going to sound crazy to somebody that already believes that they're looking at Earth curve, because we've already looked into the fact that it's not. So we're not looking at it that way. That's why, hence why I said, when I'm at altitude, I don't see. We experience in this moment no curvature. I don't see no seeing on or detect any sort of behaviour that apparently we're living in. Gases are not acting the same way. They're not. You know, they say vacuums don't suck, but gases press, and the amount of available air for that to escape to, and the amount of time that it's had to for entropy to increase, just shows that it's a contained system, some sort of cycle. And, you know, if you don't see it, if you don't understand the massive balance in the world and how it all works, then you know, what can I say to you? You've got a lot of research to do. So it's unfortunate. I don't entertain people that think the things I'm saying now are crazy. They're either need to just educate themselves. If they're interested in why they want to know, I'd give more reasons why. But yeah, from that standpoint, that's probably why it sounds like it wouldn't convince somebody that thinks they're looking at curvature. But people like that are still looking at that as curvature, I've given up on them. I've given up on them. If they're still at that stage by now, there's so much they need to unlearn.
Sure, but it's a useful phrase to know. The horizon is an Earth curve.
The horizon isn't Earth. The horizon is an Earth curve. There you go.
Exactly. That single
Yeah.
statement debunks basically heliocentrism.
I know it does, and that's why they don't like it, and that's why they don't answer gas pressure without a container. It's bizarre, like it's really bizarre, but it's the world we live in now. People follow their education until it doesn't follow. Their own education tells them that their education's wrong. You know, their own education, their own laws within their education, like, you know, their gas laws and all that volume. You know, you need a space area. If you've got like an infinite amount of space, it's just like all the mathematics just fall apart. It's all theoretical. Like, it's just bullshit. You can just theoretically talk about anything. You can still
The
get like
point is
predictable
that
patterns.
if we were on a sphere, the horizon would be Earth curve, wouldn't it?
Well, not necessarily
that's the point.
well, yes and no. That's how it's asserted. So yes, that's how it's described in the Earth curve math. So yes, but no, because in reality, if we were on a ball, we would potentially have a geometric limitation to our view. That would go without saying. It couldn't not be there. But we may also have the optical limitation to our view. Now, that used to be described by Anthony as the double dip, i.e. they're only taking one of them into account because it's a perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator, i.e. the optical horizon, which we absolutely would still experience. I'll give you an example. If you hold up a beach ball in front of you, you've got a geometric horizon and the optical limitation to your view if you're at the beach. Well, you'd have the same thing going on if you were on a ball. You'd have a geometric limitation to your view, where the ball fell away at 8 inches per mile squared, and an optical limitation.
The black swan describes it, doesn't it? Yeah. So the geometric horizon, the horizon could be no more than 1.22 times the square root of the observer height. So that's going to be your geometric physical limitation. Now, the horizon could, this is all on a ball, if that's the furthest it, excuse me, the furthest it could be. Now, because of the optical atmospheric effects, then it could render less than that, but it can never render more than that. Yeah, because there is that physical thing that fits the description of the horizon as well as it being the optical. If you do have a physical thing, it is actually going to fulfill the criteria of what a horizon is defined as. So it can, through the black swan, it can be no more than a certain amount, but it can be less if you lived on a ball. It can be more obvious.
Can I comment something with Tommy?
Feel free.
Tommy,
Yeah, what's up? What's up?
Yeah, how you doing, buddy?
What's up, man?
I'm glad you're taking the gloves off, and so to speak. But following the Black Swan since its inception and listening to all the ballers and anti-flat earthers try to make fun of it or overcome the logic of it, when they look at the horizon, again, this is just my perspective after 21 months, I guess. When they look at the horizon, it doesn't need to curve in their eyesight for them to say it's Earth curve. They've been programmed to think that the horizon is Earth curve, but it's not a curve. Okay, that's number one.
Yep.
Number two, the black swan, as Adam said, 1.22 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, puts a geometric limitation as to where that should be. And that is what the black swan has done to them. It's destroyed them. Because if we are on a sphere, you're gonna have the physicality have markers. And so when they look at a horizon, it doesn't have to look curved for them to say, I live on the ball and the horizon is Earth curve. Because they think the curve starts beyond.
I know, bro. Listen, I know that they're saying here the whole landscape can all bend over the Earth's flat curved surface, appearing to be flat because of the way that refraction works. I mean, I've heard some bizarre shit, man. Like I'm saying, so you're saying everything I can see that the entire scenery is refracting over the sea. That's supposed to be curving away. He goes, yeah. So I said, what you're saying is the reason it looks flat is because it's curving. He goes, yeah. And I just thought these people have lost their soul. Like, I can't I can't communicate with that much retardation. Too much retardation for me. That's all I know. That's all I fucking know. They're saying the entire fucking scenery is refracting over the sea, appearing, and that's why it appears to be flat, even though it's curving. It's just, how can you argue with someone who says that? How can you have a conversation?
Let me answer that. That's the primary response to the Black Swan argument, and it's going to get a response. I'm sorry to cut you off, Tenderman. Well, if the horizon's refracted, it's not geometric. Therefore, you can't derive an R value from it, as Al-Biruni has claimed to do after measuring the height of a mountain on a flat plane with basic trig, and then deriving an R value by way of a tangent point to a dip angle measurement at his horizon, assumed to be the physical geometric limitation of a sphere. If it's refracted, it cannot be, by definition, is not geometric. Upon stating that the horizon is refracted, that implodes the globe model for several reasons that we're currently going over with people like Bob the Science Guy. Okay, so we'll take their position as read, Tommy. It's all refracted. We've always got atmosphere. So how do you get a straight line when looking through the lens of a sextant? Answer, you don't.
Break it down. Like, Nathan's breaking down the technicalities a bit. Like, that's what I just realised. Nathan's destroyed it. Like, he's done it. Like, just Larry. Like, nobody's beating Nathan. He's been doing it every day, back to back. destroying it, picking it apart, and playing with it, and absolutely just running circles around. And it's still an open platform for them to come in and just defend it and hear one good argument. Instead, all I ever hear is just slander about him. All I hear is this is that, this is that. What about his arguments though? What about his arguments though? What about his arguments though? What
We
about his
talked about this in
arguments?
the pre-show, Tommy. So in the pre-show, Crackvillain is obviously the newbie. He's like getting a lesson in mic discipline and keeping away from his mic, not caught implosives and all those sorts of things. And I said, this is a testament to the times. Are we sat around the campfire talking about our next move in the argument that we've currently got going on with the globe believers that's devastating to us? No. No, I'm focused on getting buttery smooth sound. Because what else have I got to worry about? I just need to improve it by that extra 2%. It's really bugging me. Is it bugging me that there's some devastating globe argument? No, definitely not.
You know, because it looks so.
I wanted to go back to something that Temp said very quickly. I just wanted to back him up on the psychology of them just basically being pre-programmed to believe that effectively where the horizon is where effectively where there is Earth curve, right? And it's true and it shows, because if it wasn't a pre-programmed thought to them, then when they see a boat, let's say, go away from them, right? We'll think of it this way: if they were to see a boat disappear from them, right, bottom up, right, but just before the point of them disappearing bottom up, right, and then the boat is to rotate, okay, to turn, let's say 90 degrees, right, either left or right, okay, and then skate along the horizon, right, where the sky appears to meet the ground. What is it that they would notice? What would they notice, Tommy? What they would notice is that any movement of any distance greater than that of what of it's going away from them, where it would start to disappear bottom up, they would notice that it's not disappearing even 2 miles as it travels and skates along the horizon. Remember, the ball is curving in all directions. So this is how we know they're pre-programmed to think that this is Earth curve, and not that it's something that they have really thought about whatsoever. Just to back up what Tenth was saying, because effectively, what would they see? They would see this. They would see a boat. They would see it go 2 miles along the horizon and think, "Wait a minute, how can anything travel 2 miles along a horizon?" Right? Think about it.
No, it's the same as this. Look, in every scenario where you expect to see curvature or rotation, or when you get these questions where you really push it to the limit, they've always got this like, oh, did you know about this counter refraction and interjection refraction? It's just like it never fucking ends, man. Like they've got this reason or this excuse for everything. I mean, even the moon that supposedly is going away from us 1 inch per year, but yet mass attracts mass. But they're saying that we know that there's moon rock on the Earth because that's how we know it was created some sort of collision. But then if the moon was so close to the Earth at one point because it's actually moving away, so obviously therefore it moves an inch. So if it's billions and billions of years ago, 2-3 billion years ago, how many inches is that closer? And then you're telling me even then the gravitational effect was not having a mass attracting mass effect. It's still going out in orbitals or fucking mechanics. You're saying that for some reason that these two large bodies that have mass are not attracting to each other for some reason, even though they were created right next to each other, and now they'll go drifting apart.
Hey, Tommy.
And then you're saying it's
Tommy,
moving the
so-
ocean, and it's like doing all these things. It's just crazy, man.
Slow down.
Tommy,
And they're saying it's
Just
moving the
summarize
ocean,
it.
basically
Hold
there's
on,
like a little
hold on,
ripple
Tommy.
effect that gives them free
Tommy,
energy. 'Cause
Tommy,
basically
just
we know
one
you
sec.
can't
Tommy,
change it, we cannot
Tommy,
go
you've got
destroy
verbal
it.
diarrhea. Tenth's really trying to get a word in. Go ahead, Tenth.
Sorry.
Yeah, Tommy, it's a lot easier than that. Nathan has done it many times, as well as others on the panel. The minute any of them says refraction, it's over. And the reason it's over is because they could have never obtained any of the information that they're using to validate the globe if there was refraction.
Okay, I've got a super chat from Retro Bill. He says, Nathan, I wondered if 10th man might summarize the Sextant argument in a sentence or two, assuming one is presenting it to a newbie.
Yeah, I don't mind doing that, but can we finish the thought here?
Yeah, I was just going to chip on that, and he's probably shopping, but it's summarized as the Arwinian paradox, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So Tommy, let's role play. I'm going to be the baller. You're going to be Tommy, the flat earther.
All right. Okay.
And you're going to, and we're talking about Earth curvature.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
all right.
Tommy. It's refraction. That's why.
So the reason I can see the black swan is because it's refracting over the horizon the way it should be curving away from us from obstruction from the curvature of the Earth.
Yeah, refraction. I mean, are you denying?
So can I put a heater on it? Can I put a heater on the side of a corner and see around corners as well?
Tommy, make it simpler.
Does it only have a vertical on the right? Does this refraction only have a vertical and horizontal?
Right,
effect
Tommy,
on the
Tommy,
light
wait there. Stop a
across
second.
through it? Or can I use it for
Wait there, Tommy.
horizontal and looking around corners? Because
Tom,
basically, you're
what's the
saying I can
black?
see over
Tommy, take
a
a
hump,
break.
right?
Tommy,
It's refracting
chill.
over there.
Tommy, you're leaving a gap. Somebody's going to start talking. You just got to let them.
Go on.
Go ahead, Ted.
All right, sorry.
Tommy, let's take a break from the exercise we're having right now. What is the black swan argument between you and me, two flat earthers? What is the black swan argument?
I think the black swan argument tests the mathematics that have been given by NASA and basically consensus to give you an accurate way to mathematically find out the horizon to the basically the R value where the Earth curves away, basically Earth curvature where it's expected to go away from you at a certain mile per distance in all directions, being on the surface of the Earth.
Close enough.
So basically, what they've done is they've
Yeah,
tried to test that actual
Okay,
number.
okay, it's close enough. You're saying it's giving you where the Earth curve claims to be, anti-punking
Yes,
it.
basically, yeah.
Yeah.
In a nutshell.
But Earth curve is the horizon. Go ahead, 10th.
All right, so if you just go to the slide QE is provided for everyone, just memorize that. It can be no further than what? Earth curve can be no further than.
Yeah, that's the numbers I've got. Yeah,
Ten,
I've gone over this, but I don't remember it off by heart. Like I'm not a preacher on it. Like I know I've been through it all, so I've heard both sides of the argument. I've gone through your guys' papers. I've gone through what you guys are saying. I've presented it to the Grovers. They've just gone. Oh,
I know
you
what-
just got that,
that, that was
Oh, you
that was exceedingly complicated. 10th asked the question, Tommy. I'd instead of trying to maybe you've got a lot of knowledge. You don't need it here. Yeah, you don't need to expound the knowledge. He asked you refraction. Yeah, he said to you refraction. So you've only got to say what sort of refraction. Use QE's tips. Make them speak. Yeah, and they'll hang themselves. So 10th, what sort of refraction are you talking?
Terrestrial.
Terrestrial refraction. Do you want to pick it up from there, Tommy?
Yeah, let's go.
He might not understand the argument, and we've only got 3 minutes of live show left, so I'm just going to lay it out. Tommy, listen up.
Yeah.
He's laying out that their refraction is terrestrial refraction. Now, terrestrial refraction, if you hear the name, otherwise known as, or sometimes called, standard refraction or atmospheric refraction. If you hear any of those terms, they all mean the same thing. Now, in standard form, or standard refraction, that's terrestrial refraction or atmospheric refraction, is 7/6 of the radius value. Now, if you've refracted the horizon, it's no longer a tool to get R, and they're claiming it's refracted with R, Tommy. So their refraction needs R, and they haven't got it if the horizon's refracted.
They've got to
Well
slip
said.
it in somewhere. No, they've got to slip it in somewhere. No, that's what they do. You know, and then they say that, oh, you know, unless you can parrot back all the maths, then you can't really say these people are wrong. But at the end of the day,
No,
like,
no, that's what
at the
we're
end of the day,
saying.
like, I think there's some good concepts that people have put together.
Well, I'm going
and
to ask
they're
Adam,
valid
Tommy,
points.
I'm just going to ask Adam to lay out the arwinian paradox for the audience or you.
Just in time.
Oh, he is back in time for it. Perfect. Well, maybe Arwin should do it. But the point, I won't
was
do it. I'll
summoned.
let Arwin do it. But the point I'm saying, Tommy, you see, you've only asked one question. What type of refraction? They have to answer terrestrial. That then takes them to R. Now you've got them by the short and curlies, mate, because you have them in the Arwinian paradox. And Arwin, take it away.
Oh, I need to explain it?
Ideally, yes. I know you've only just got back, but if you can just lay out what the arwinian paradox actually is in terms of getting an R from a refracted horizon that's derivative of R. Go ahead.
Yes. It's kind of mathematical, really, in nature, because terrestrial refraction is a formula that suggests that light is bending at a very specific rate, and that rate, that arc, is dependent on the very radius of Earth for its calculations. The R value is within the formula they apply if they're actually going to physically calculate it and not just talk about it. And the problem is that in order to establish the R value, to really make it real, to have proof of it through physical measurement, you have to actually measure the horizon geometry. You have to figure out the geometry of Earth. And yeah, if the horizon would be bending because of this terrestrial refraction, then you could never establish that geometry because things are not where you see them. And so you run into a paradox. If you apply terrestrial refraction, then you don't have the radius that is integral to the formula in order to apply terrestrial refraction.
Right.
That's
You
the
can't
Arwinian.
use R to refract the horizon with R, because then you can't measure R. So you can't get R if the horizon's refracted. And if it's refracted with R, you can't get R to refract it with. It goes round and round because it's a paradox, labelled appropriately as a paradox by Arwin, and therefore got his namesake. So it's the Arwinian paradox. You can't refract the horizon with R because you derived the R value from the physical geometric horizon. And if it's refracted, it's not geometric, so you can't get an R value to refract it with. I'm going to keep this live show open just for a little bit because we don't often on the show get to see just Arwin. Most of the time, as much as I hate, like Levan hate to say it, we get Baldwin. And what you've just heard is a good example of what you'll get on Arwin's show on the Early Bird. So Arwin is on fire when he's on his own show and he's just doing his thing as a flat earther, which he is. But most of the time on this show, you'll see Arwin in a slightly different light because he kind of plays that role. He's just ended up being in it. But how concise and detailed Arwin was with the Arwinian paradox, not just because it's his and it's his namesake. That's true of anything he talks about on Flat Earth Early Bird. So go and subscribe to Arwin and check out his show because he's brilliant and I can't really give him any better a plug, and it's a nice opportunity to do that when he's just been himself giving his explanation as he does on his own show. So thank you for that, Arwin. Also, because it was paid for, I want 10th if he's around. You still there, 10th?
Yeah, I'm here.
Earlier on in the show we said, can we sort of segue away from a request by Super Chat to detail in a couple of sentences, if you would consider you were talking to a newbie, how you detail the Sextant argument. Is there any chance you can do that just while we've got this live show still running? I'll keep it open just to do it.
Yeah, I'll do it for $10. Of course I'll do it.
Right, with that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both. No, go ahead, go on.
You want me to do it now?
Yes, please, if you'd be so kind.
Okay.
Do it live.
Just for clarity, hold on, before we do, you're not getting $10 for this.
I know.
I was
that.
going
I'm
to
saying
explain
it-
about the the heater on the corner. That's what I mean. He said if I was talking to a normal glober, what would I say to them? So I'd say to them, can I bend light by seeing around corners by putting a heater at the corner? Because you're saying heat, atmospheric conditions are bending things around obstructed view. So I was going to test their knowledge and whether I can create an atmospheric condition behind an obstructed surface and see around it due to pushing the light around it to work horizontally as well as vertically. Because basically you're saying the whole atmosphere, terrestrial refraction, or however you want to categorize it, that's bending over the obstruction of the Earth because of the light. So it's all refracting. So there's obviously atmospheric conditions you can create to get that effect. So I'm saying to them, can I emulate that by seeing around corners?
No.
Obviously brings
I
them
know
to
you
the
are.
conclusion.
No. What you're doing then is you're buying into their argument. You've already begged the question then. I've got to keep. We'll get back to you 10th. I'm sorry. No, because then you're into. So light can bend at a rate of R then around corners. You've missed the point.
That's what I'm saying.
No, stop. Tom, I know, Tommy,
I
I know what you're saying. You don't have to keep telling me through me that you're telling me that when I understand it, and I understood it the first time he said it. Yeah, you're saying, I just asked them if they can see around corners with their refraction. Yeah, their refraction, Tommy, you're not picking up the subtle hint to shut up. So now I've got to actually say it on a live show. Please shut up while I'm talking. Don't just babble straight through me. It's irritating. Thank you. So, yes, I understand your argument. You ask them when you just fall into their trap of begging the question that light is refracted at the rate of R. If light is refracted through sphere-shaped air, that's atmosphere, then they'll need R to claim that. Number one, to claim there's sphere-shaped air, atmosphere that the light's bending through, that needs R. But the very rate mathematically that they're going to claim in rebuttal, if they throw the argument straight back at you, yes, light can bend around the corner of this building you're describing, and it will do so at a rate that is based on R.
I see
Now-
what you mean. So let's just go back.
No,
So
Tommy, I haven't
realistically, the
fucking
ultimate question-
finished.
Yeah, I get you now. I get what
You don't, because I haven't finished.
I do.
What's my next sentence then, clairvoyant Tommy? You can't stop interrupting when I'm trying to
Go
educate
to the
you.
second point. If you crush them right at the very get-go at the gates, whereas they don't even get away with R in the first place before you even get down that road.
Right, if you're measuring an R value, you need it to be a geometric derivation. You need to measure geometry if you're measuring R. And if it's refracted, it isn't geometric. So therefore, when they say it's refracted, they first must have acquired a geometric R value. And they do that with the horizon. The very thing they're telling you that's refracted in the argument is the thing they need to be geometric to get the R to refract it.
So your point is to make sure you stick on R because that's the real argument.
Yeah, they need R.
No point.
Exactly. They
Yeah,
need
yeah,
R,
yeah.
and they can't get it if the horizon's refracted.
Exactly, yeah. So I shouldn't even go down to this road and to give and beg the question, like you said, yeah. That's why you're lecturing me on it. I see what you're doing now. I hear what you're going.
Do
I
you
hear
know
you're
what
saying.
their initial claim was? Do you know what the initial claim that got this entire globe belief started?
Well,
ahead.
I know that everything was all in, flat and the water's above and all that. In
No,
there.
no, no. Just tell us, John.
It's that you can measure a
NASA
dip
globe.
angle to the horizon and derive geometry to the Earth from it. And that you could draw a tangent to that horizon to get your radius.
Right, boats going over the horizon. That's where it starts. That's where the myth starts.
Yeah, the over the horizon bit being over the geometric limitation that they derive R from. So what John's saying is, the claim is that we can get Earth geometry. We can measure it. That's the claim. Well, if it's refracted, you can't measure it. And that's where the claim starts. That they can measure its geometry? No, you can't. You're saying it's refracted. Paradoxically, with the R value, you can no longer measure. Okay, right. I'm gonna draw a line under it. Right, 10th. We're still live, and I still do want that $10 because times are hard, right? Please smash the PayPal link. Support this channel. It's been a tough month. But in all
4
seriousness,
more hours.
no, not
Yes,
4 more.
yes.
I thought this live show would stop working. I had internet issues before we started this. We're now running at 8 minutes over, and I still haven't got 10th to do his presentation that someone paid for. Ugh. Right, 10th, are you there?
I'm here. Retro Bill says $10 Sextant. Here we go. Sextant is an angle measuring device. It can never work off of a curved surface.
That is literally it. So perfect timing, because with that I will and can and I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you first and foremost to both Discord and G+ Panels for making today's live show. It's been going on so long it seems like the after show, but there will be an after show to follow if you are watching on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams. So stay tuned. If you are watching this and are wondering why I'm totally confused, it's because the live show doesn't normally last this long, and that's thrown me completely off, along with Arwin joining late on the last introduction. So I'll say it one more time. Stay tuned if you're watching on a premium stream. I've been Nathan Oakley in a befuddled way. I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!